Welcome to the next of our video series for onboarding for gold and silver clients of Workshop software. Today's video is going to be about supplier invoices. And what we're going to do is we're going to cover the complete process, which is from purchase orders straight to invoices, adding parts, marking up parts on your invoices, the saving and processing of supplier invoices, and also how to process supplier payments. So given that we have quite a lot of work to do, let's just get stuck right into it. Now, as per usual, our primary navigation key is up here, the plus sign. And in here, we can enter a supplier stock order, or we could go straight into adding a supplier invoice. In this particular instance, what I'm going to do, just to show you some of the functionality of Workshop software, is to go into a supplier stock order. So first thing we need to do is we need to find our supplier. In this particular instance, we're going to say that it's Repco. All right. You'll see that the order number is grayed out. This is because the order number is automatically attached by Workshop software. It's going to be the order date is what you're going to put in here. Due date, if there's any specific due date that you have. And for the parts, what we're going to do is we're going to order a 674-9124, which is a cabin filter, and we're going to order 3 of those. All right, that's that. And also we're going to add a couple of wiper blades, I believe it is, 1514. No, another air filter. All right, so we're going to order 3 of those, and possibly an oil filter. And there we have it. Now you can see that in all of these instances, these parts are already in our system, all right? So they already have the unit cost, and they also have the cost including tax. All we do is we simply come in here and we add the quantity that we'd like to buy. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to process this purchase order. Actually, I'm going to save it first. Save that. And now if I'd like to email that over to the supplier, I can simply come in here and I can either print out the stock order, in which case it would look like this. That is what my stock order looks like. And as you can see, our details, the supplier's details, the order number, the order date, the due date, so on. And this is still a suggested order because we haven't actually processed it yet. And then we have a list of all the parts and the quantities and so on, and what the purchase order or what the invoice should look like when it arrives. Now, if I close that, that'll be fine. If I'd like to email that over to the supplier, I can simply come in here and go email the stock order. Right? I would need their email address, so I'm going to go Now, normally what we would do is we would have the supplier's email address in here, and I would just come in here and just go that it's a purchase order. And I can add a template. So if I've created a template for my suppliers, I have one here, which is called a Repco PO. Right, that will automatically have all the text and who it's coming from, contact details in case the supplier needs to get in touch with us. Then I would simply press on the send button. As you can see, there is one attachment included, which would be the purchase order itself. All right, so I'm going to cancel that. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to process this order. Orders cannot be sent to Repco once they're processed. That's fine. I understand that. I go process anyway. Right, now that's been processed. Something to bear in mind, of course, is that a purchase order is not a financial transaction. It is simply a demand on the part of the workshop to the supplier to supply those parts, right? The only financial transaction that will occur is when the supplier fulfills that purchase order and sends over the parts along with an invoice, right? The reason that I've actually done the purchase order first is I'd like you to watch the following process. Let's say that the parts arrive and so does the supplier's invoice. What we would do is we would come in here and we'd go, we've received a supplier invoice. There it is. We find the supplier. It is Repco. There it is. Okay. In here, what we would do is we would enter the supplier's invoice number. So in this particular instance, there it is. You would have the posting date of the invoice, when it arrived, or what the date is on the invoice. Also, bear in mind, please, that if you get a credit note from a supplier, you can actually enter it as a credit note in here, in the supplier invoice page. You simply swap it over from the default, which is an invoice, over to a credit. All right. And you should also have all the payment terms for your suppliers in the supplier record itself, along with all their contact details. Now, the reason that I created a purchase order initially was so that I could do the following. If I come in here, I can go add the items from my order. So this is going to look in a list of my purchase orders. If I click on that, I have a purchase order over here, 15th of the day. That was supposed to be the value of this supplier's purchase order. I select that. What that will do is that will pick all the parts that I have on my purchase order and drop them directly into my invoice. Right, now that that's opened up my supplier purchase order, right, that shows all the parts that were on the purchase order itself. These should be the same parts that are on the invoice. And as we can see, we have the A1514 air filter, the cabin filters, and also the oil filter. Now, the reason that I wanted to show you this was very simply as follows. If I save this for a moment, and I go back into my product set, okay, if we look, we can see that we have no 1514 air filters on hand, all right? And also we have -2 cabin filters, which means that we have sold 2 of these already to customers. However, we haven't actually brought in the supplier invoice, which actually is where we purchase them. And this is going to change as we process this supplier invoice. So there is our cabin filter, there is our air filter, and then down here, we should have our oil filters. So here we have 11 of them on hand already. So what I'm going to do is going to go drop back into the Repco record. There we have it. And here I have my invoice. So I'm going to open that. Okay. Now, what I can also do is, if the price has changed since the last time that I actually entered these parts or purchased these parts, I can actually come to this $sign over here in the middle of the screen, and I can change the markup on any given one of these products. So if I come in here, this will tell me that the old cost was $16.84 and the old retail price was $23.85. Now, if I choose to mark that up, I can do it one of 2 different ways. I can come in here and I can go, I'm going to mark this product up by 50%. All right, and save that. And it says, are you sure you want to update the price for that air filter? So we can see the new retail price would be $25.26 as opposed to the old retail of $23.85. Conversely, I can also come in here, and what I can do is I can mark it up by a specific price value. So if I go, I want to sell those for $28.25, that will tell me that my markup is 67%, and that will change the new retail price to $28.25. So if I save that, the system will always ask me whether I'm sure that I would like to do that, and I go, yes, that's right. Okay, and from now on, when I sell that air filter, it will sell for that particular price. You can do the same thing in here, come in and go out. I'm going to mark that up by, let's say, 85%. Well, I already had it marked up by that much, so if I mark it up by 100%, right, it will tell me that the new retail price will be $12.28 as opposed to the old retail price of $11.95. Okay, and there we go. We can save that. Now, the other thing that I can do is I can actually attach these particular parts, all right, to a particular customer invoice. So if I come in here and click on the star on the right-hand side, I can go attach these to an invoice. And this will give me, if I do this, this will give me the option of taking any of the parts or all of the parts that are on this invoice and adding them to customer invoices. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to pick this cabin filter. All right. And I'm going to go there. Right. And I'm going to assign it to Jennifer Dobbs's invoice, right, of 6720, right, invoice number 5027. So I come in here, click on that, select that. All right. Now, if I'm happy that this is the correct amount for my invoice, right? If the supplier charged me freight by any chance, right, I would actually put the freight charges in here. Might go 525 as a freight charge. All right, that would move the value of the invoice up to 89.89. If I take that out, then it would be back to 84.11. Another feature of Workshop software, and this depends on whether you've turned this on in your settings, your company settings, is the rounding button. Now, if I had this invoice issued to me by the supplier and it turned around and said that the invoice was actually $89.89, right, or 88 cents, I should say, right? Because Workshop software rounds out to the fourth decimal place, I can make a slight adjustment to the value of the invoice so that it matches exactly what the supplier sent me. So I can come in and make a minor adjustment of 1 cent. All right, save that. And what I can do is now process this supplier invoice. Says, are you sure you want to save and process the invoice? It's fine. I agree to do that. Now, if I have my Workshop software attached to an accounting system, that invoice will now then go directly into the accounting system and say that we owe Repco $89.35 as of the 15th of June for this invoice number. If we go back into the product set now, what we're going to do is come and have a look. And if we look at our cabin filters, for example, we now have 1 cabin filter. And for the air filters, we now have 3. And also for the Z9 oil filter, right, we now have 12 as opposed to 11. So as you can see, processing your supplier invoices updates your inventory and keeps all of your inventory in balance. And that is probably one of the strongest features of Workshop software insofar as it allows you to manage your inventory. Allows you to manage your inventory very, very seamlessly and keeps everything in place for you.